So Shiv, when it comes to making decisions, what do you base it off? Your heart, your mind, or the gut?
The gut. I'm joking.
You answered that really quickly. I was surprised.
No, I think it depends. It depends on the situation, the context that you're making the decision in. I feel like at times, if you try to make your brain and your heart get conflicted when you're making like relationship decisions. And so your brain tells you logically, this is the right thing to do. But your heart tells you, no, like there's a part of it. I mean, it's not exactly the heart, but you know what I mean? It's like that feeling inside that they're conflicted. From a like career point of view, I mean, it's always, you tend to use your brain, but when there's been situations where I'm like, okay, this is a bit of a 50-50, where do I go? I think it's going down to like first principles and mental models. So I think the brain plays a big part, but I know the gut also plays a big part. There's a sixth sense that people get, which is subconscious. It's, you know, when you feel like you're in danger, or you're fearing for something, there's this sixth sense that your brain is trying to tell you, your mind is trying to tell you. But I know there's a lot of research on gut health, actually, where your gut telling a lot. So that's what I would say, like decision making. It's all three, but it just depends on the context.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting answer as well. I agree with what you're saying as well. And I think it really depends on context, because the way I see it is, if I was to really break it down, is the mind is like your rational thinking, your logical flow, where you're making those decisions off. Your heart is more emotional, and your gut is more instinctive. And now when you think about the context, like if it's like relationships, yeah, a lot of your heart, like sometimes we get struck by like love, right? The feeling of love, but sometimes that can blind you towards the red flags of what's happening. So you become, blind by those. So then that's when you got to also think about like the rational side of it, like the red flags, is really worth you going into this, and the risks and stuff that is involved if you pursue further. Your heart is telling you one thing, but then you can almost judge whether or not this is good for you based off your instinct. If in your first interaction with this person, if it's already bad, in the best condition, meaning like you're on a date where you're having good food and you're at a like good setting and everything, and you already feel like in your gut, it's you don't have good energy or good vibes, they call it, then you can imagine in like more difficult situations, it's going to be a lot worse. It's going to be a lot more hard, and it's probably not worth you pursuing further with it if your first interaction in the best setting is already bad. So in that regard, it's like almost the instinctive reaction or the instinctive feeling that I get is more of a priority in that situation. But yeah, I think I would base it mostly off instinct for very quick decisions that I have to make on the fly, that I don't have time to think and feel. I just have to make it on the spot. It would be gut. If it was in regards to where I do have time to think, then I would go with obviously my mind and gut together. And I use the heart for conviction. Like this is like something that I know. I've got confirmation. I'm certain with this. And now like the heart sort of plays a role in just making it more stronger, like the belief and just me pursuing further with this. It's like how you hear that quote where they say like put your heart and soul into it.
Do you ever see your brain and your heart conflicting in that situation though? Because when you have that conviction, right? You have that conviction, you feel like it's the right thing.
Let's just put it into context with this podcast.
Right.
For example.
Okay.
Like there's your mind telling you, oh, you're wasting your time, and like the opinions of other people who are saying like, oh, like what are you guys doing? You're wasting your time, blah, 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 blah. Like you guys are nobodies. And then there's like the other part of your heart telling you, nah, just pursue this, keep going with it. Like it can further develop you and things like that. So it's like there's a bit of conflict in that sometimes as well. And I think in those contexts, my instinct is like I should just keep going with it regardless of like how I feel.
Is that what your gut tells you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think regardless, like the outcome that I'll get from this is just going to further develop me in ways that I'm not going to realize now, but later on I will. And my mind also, it has that conflict as well. But because I rely more on my gut instinct in this case, and I've sort of made the heart and the mind sort of more on my side than against me. So I basically integrate all three. Because the gut tells me I should continue going with this, and the mind tells me other things that there's both sides, like good and bad. Like, oh yeah, this is good for your development, bad for like us, probably opportunity cost of your time. And the heart is just like, yeah, heart is always going to say, yeah, go with whatever you feel. So I think
our brains also process based on the experiences we know, but our gut
is this some subconscious?
Is subconscious of you haven't experienced this, but you're going to experience this. Does that sort of make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
because you've got memories of that experience. You've seen people go through that same thing. I'm glad you brought up the podcast thing, because you're right. Your brain, when you're so when you go down that rabbit hole of numbers, let's say, and you start looking at numbers, and you start looking at like that comparison part of it, it's like, oh well, why am I not doing as bad as someone else? But it's like you're on your own path, and you're instinctively, there's something that pushes you to continue doing it, and that's probably the hardest part, is when you don't see, sometimes when you continuously push, because in the context of what we work, let's say, right, you're given a task, you do the task, it's done well, tick. So you see a result. And so that result, you get a rush of dopamine, you feel good. That's your experience, that I've done something, I should be rewarded at that point in time, tick. But I think the way things like this work, or content creation, or running your own business, or something where that gratification isn't immediate, it'll be seen in periods. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be seen, when you take a step back, you see it in a more whole picture, that you have improved over time. But I think we're also so driven on short-term gratification.
That's actually, before I go through that, I was going to say, what about you? How do you feel about like the podcast in terms of your heart, mind, gut?
Exactly the same. The mind will tell you logically that it's not. I mean, there's two parts to it. It's like sometimes when you see the numbers, or you think, you get discouraged. But my brain also tells me that this is it's a long-term thing. You've got to, if you've started something and you've committed to it, you need to know your purpose at that point as well. So if you don't have, like for us, we have a strong purpose. We always talk about it. Why do we want to do this? There's a reason why we want to do this. And that reason is what keeps you going. And that's sort of the heart and the mind in a way for me. It's like my heart is set on the fact that we have a purpose, we know why we're doing this, and we enjoy doing it. That's the biggest part. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes like I think about it, I'm like, is it worth doing? Is it a different approach? And sometimes you've just got to keep at it without seeing the immediate results.
Yeah.
But you can't be results driven either.
That's a really good point, actually, because this also touches on like short-term gratification. I was thinking about like goals yesterday, and I was thinking a lot of our goals is based off results, and that's why we actually sabotage ourselves in the process, because results are a very long-term thing, not like a short-term, instantly you're going to get it. And I think instead of doing results-driven goals, just do action-based goals, which is like, okay, instead of aiming for getting 1,000 subscribers, start off with doing 100 videos. See if you can actually do 100 videos and see where that takes you. Because if you can do 100 videos and you don't see any progress, then maybe that says something. Like maybe this probably isn't, maybe you might be stronger at something else, probably, who knows. But commit to doing that. And I feel like that's a lot more measurable as well. Like you can see your progress through that. Whereas 1,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, all that stuff will just make you depressed, because you're thinking about it happening very quick and instantly, and you're comparing yourself to other people. Whereas when it's like action based, it's just like, now you're accountable. Like, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you upload a video? Like, just keep going with what you're doing, and then you'll see the results over time. And that's what I've just started doing recently. I'm just like, instead of looking at, the numbers and all that stuff, I'm just more focused on like, let me just do 100 hours of this thing and see where that's going to take me and how much that'll improve of what I do. Then I'll see the results as I go.
I agree. And I think that's where, when you take away the result, when you take away the results in that action base, you see a healthier side of that improvement. So rather than the result being numbers, the result is you've become better at something over time. And if you commit to making 500 videos, your video 1 to your 500 is going to be completely different. I'm going to say it all the time. Our first episode we recorded in November was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. And I think I have a copy of it on my
no exaggeration there at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll probably release that at some point to actually show that this was actually the day one compared to where it is now. It's a big step up, huge step up.
Yeah, and it's just slowly going to get better, to be honest.
Exactly. Time. But you're right. I think if we go back to that gut, brain, and heart, there's a lot of that's the beauty of it. There's so many problems in life people face that everyone has the conflict between the brain, gut, and heart. Like everyone does, and it's interesting because it's like that one decision can literally lead you to a completely different path.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like a domino effect. It just deviates you into a completely different path, whether it's for the bad or the good.
And it's like, those are the biggest enemies, to be honest. Like, if they're not all three integrated together, they end up becoming your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
And it's like, you then lose control over yourself and your life. Then it leads to outcomes that you never even desired or wanted. And I think that's why I think the integration of all three is very important. Like there's going to be moments of conflict, but if you can rely on one, depending on the situation, and just make the other two then be able to align with that, that's just going to, you just become unstoppable, I feel, at that point. Your heart, your mind, and your gut, all three are just stuck to that. It's just like when you see professional athletes or you see a professional martial artist, all three of those things are aligned. Like you see, they have the heart, they have the courage to be able to face through adversity or difficulty. I can't really name any martial artists right now, but let's just say Bruce Lee. There's so many situations where he's been told that he's just never going to be able to shoot a video because he broke his back doing those crazy flips and stuff like that. But he proved them wrong because he had in those situations you need to have heart, because you need to have conviction and you need to have courage to be able to go through that. When everyone's against you as well, especially. And yeah, he had his mind. He always talked about training the mind, and mind is always the most important. So he always be doing relaxation types of activities, and also a lot of psychology type of things to strengthen himself. And obviously had his body and his gut, his instinct. I guess that he does that through physical training and other types of activities he would do, which will help make him more understand and become more aware of all three of them and make them more integrated. And I think he's a really good example of someone who's integrated all three.
Mm-hmm. I think with that short-term results thing, and if we go back to social media and the impact it's had, social media shows the results, a lot of it, right? And then if you see majority of the world on social media, what are they going to see? They're just going to see results. But the journey of doing it and getting to that result or getting through that is the most fun bit and the most toughest bit as well at the same time, in my opinion. But it's where you develop your character, but also a lot of your decision making gets better. It's where you actually figure out your decision making is throughout that journey. Because decision making isn't actually easy. We actually make a lot of decisions throughout the day, subconsciously. You don't even know some of the decisions you make, like crossing the road. You actually think, should I cross if there's no lights, you actually think, should I be crossing the road? Or you're driving. Do I change lanes? Do I speed up? Do I slow down? It's all so like your body's in sync and you make all these little micro decisions throughout the day. But the most fascinating thing is you make one wrong decision at that point and you are down a completely different trajectory. Fascinating, right?
Yeah, that's like the butterfly effect, right? Where it's or like chaos theory, where it's like one decision can affect everything else, like your complete like your outcome.
Yeah.
I just when you were saying that, I was just thinking of Final Destination.
Right.
Did you watch that movie?
No.
It's just like it's so ridiculous. One little thing where it's like, say someone dropped a bottle cap or something on the road, then the outcome becomes that like a truck ends up like crashing into a car, and then like the car flips, and then someone ends up dying. Like it's exaggerating the idea of butterfly effect. Like small little things create like a huge effect.
But it's
catalyst.
true, because a lot of people you hear, they're like, oh, well, I wasn't planning to, like it's so unfortunate that you hear about it. People that, they might do a different routine, for example. Like they might take a different road on a different day. Like, oh, I feel like a bit of a drive. And then all of a sudden, unfortunately, that like you might get into an accident or something, or everything might go well. Like people don't like, obviously you don't want to think about that, but it's the fact that even if you do something different, it could have a different consequence to it. Like life is so fragile when you think about it. It's like you're always one decision, like you could be a decision away from making the wrong decision, but that could lead to a wrong consequence. But I think people are really good at making decisions as well. Would you say? Because our brain, gut, and heart, like, would you say our decision making comes from survival?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it definitely has influence over survival. I mean, I think part of survival is that we want to be able to belong and connect with people. And obviously, I think Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well, like being able to have like the essential things that you need to be able to survive. But yeah, I'm quite sure that a lot of there's an influence of that in our decision making, definitely. And I think it makes me think about like also the gut, right? Because the gut is such an underrated part of your body. Like it's not many people know about it, but the gut and your brain are actually connected through like a nerve. It's called like the vagus nerve. And that's why when you see like in therapy and stuff, they make you breathe, and they do like specific type of breathing techniques to be able to make you more composed and calm. So then you can make more rational decisions, which align both of them together. And most of your, apparently like your serotonin, I think like 90%, I think it was like 80 or 90% of it comes from your gut. So it's like a good, pleasurable type of feeling. And it makes you more emotionally more stable and more, in tune with your mind and your body, So it's just in what I actually was reading as well was like the different types of tribes. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. I think it was Hazda tribe. They apparently have the best gut health in the world. And when you go there, like some guy, I was watching a video of some comedian, he went there to just visit and understand their culture. And he said he was like depressed before he went. And he's like in the US. And when he went there and he visited the Hazard tribe, he did those like, he did the cultural things that they would do. They eat like certain types of food. They go hunting and all those types of things. And they dance and they laugh in the fire and campfire and stuff like that. And he said like, he didn't even, because they were doing things every single minute, an hour. He didn't have time to be depressed. He's like, when I went there, my depression was gone. And his gut health was so good. But when he came back to America, his gut health went like, because of all the food and stuff you eat, it ended up becoming really, really unhealthy and bad. And he said he was like the happiest when he was actually there with the tribe, doing all these types of activities and things. Yeah. And they are just insane. Like he explained to them the idea of depression, and they're just like, wait, people can feel like this? Like they were so clueless that depression existed, because that idea of depression doesn't exist in that tribe. They never have depression or sadness. And so, yeah, it's incredible. And there's so many other things about them which is insane. But yeah, they have so much energy as well. They're running nonstop 2 hours straight with just a little bit of water and stuff. They're like at the peak of human capability, to be honest. But a lot of a lot of the culture and everything is, they have a healthy gut. That's like one of the biggest takeaways I got from it. And that's what the comedian was talking about. So
who was the comedian?
Honestly, cannot remember the name, but he was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
What did he speak about his experience on that?
He talked about his experience, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. And I did more research, and I was like, wow, this is actually makes sense.
It's true, because a lot of people, when you eat like crappy food, processed food, you actually tend to just crash. Like you just tend to go, no, like I can't do something, or you just completely fall out of it. I don't know if, like, I've completely 100% noticed that you lack the energy, you lack the drive, you can't smash junk food and then go and start to train. Like, it's very hard. It's easier if you've had, like, tuna and broccoli, for example, or something healthier. And then, or could it all be in your mind? Who knows? There's probably a lot of reasons for it.
There is actually research, which is that, because the gut has bacteria, right? And bacteria, most people think is bad, but there's actually good bacteria, which helps. I don't know the name, it's a very long name, but there's a specific bacteria in your gut which actually stabilizes your emotions. And so you want more good bacteria. When you have junk food like McDonald's and all those types of things, you're introducing bad bacteria in your gut. Yeah.
Macca's, Rozzy, Macca's.
All those Macca's and stuff.
Not McDonald's, Macca's. No, I'm joking.
McDonald's, yeah.
Macca's.
Yeah, so when you have those things, that's why you feel sluggish. And it's like so you're introducing bad bacteria, and then it makes you more emotionally more unstable. So it's like, for example, a good thought experiment I can give is like, before you go to do a speech in front of thousands of people, have two scenarios. One is where before you go, you have McDonald's, and the second one
is Macca's.
Yeah, Macca's, mate. Yeah, so the first scenario is like you have Macca's before you go and do the speech. And the second one is you have no Macca's and you go and do the speech. Which one do you think you'll feel a lot better?
I know Macca's.
And more confident in doing?
If you're in a fasted state, yeah.
Definitely. And you'll actually be more, you'll be able to think on the fly. You have less brain fog, and you just feel a lot less anxious. Because you're going to be anxious in both states. But if you have Macca's, it's going to make it worse. It's going to make you feel even more anxious, and you get like this, you don't want to even do the speech anymore. Whereas in the second one, it's like, you feel anxious, but then you feel at some stage you hit a stage where you're comfortable now. You're like, oh, it's not as bad as it was.